Hello, it's Mac here, and today I'm going to talk about the new stunt races in GTA Online. So there are 5 new races in GTA Online that were added on Tuesday, July 26th, and I want to talk about these races because they're actually very, very good. Much like a lot of the other stunt races in the game, I think just overall, a lot of the stunt races are pretty good, and these are no different. So first off, I want to talk about these 2 new supercar races. Now, the first one is Chiliad. Now, this one is a supercar race, and you basically go around the Chiliad mountain, and it's a very high speed race with not too many like 90-degree turns or anything like that, and it's a very curvy road that you have to go down, but I really do like it because it's a little bit different, and it reminds me a lot of some of the more high speed stunt races with supercars like Plummet, and I feel like this is one of the better races of this pack, and one of the best races, or stunt races, in the game entirely, because I really do like just how fast you can go on this race. And it's very intense because you're going so fast and you have to go past these corners. And there's lots of high jumps, which is very nice, and that's always nice to see because while I really like Plummet, there isn't really that many jumps that go on. Here, there are a lot. So this one is very good, and really, like, there are a lot of points where you can mess up. So next up is another supercar race called Vespucci. Now this one obviously takes place in Vespucci, and it's a little bit different than Chiliad, where Chiliad, you know, you're going super fast, and you're going down this mountain and going up it with lots of jumps, and you're just at your max speed. Here, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more close quarters, where even on the beginning part of this race, you're very close to your teammates. So, really, there isn't much room for error on this race, and on one hand, that's kind of nice, but at the same time, without non-contact being, you know, able for these races, it does get a little annoying because people will just try and, you know, ram each other out. And you're really, like, if you're neck and neck with other players in this race, which I really wasn't whenever I played this race, but if you are, then I expect you're gonna not have much room. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the East Coast race, which is one of my favorite, you know, supercar races and stunt races in the game, and I like it. You know, you have 2 different supercar races, but they're completely different, which is one of my favorite things about these stunt races, how unique they really can be, especially with the supercar races, because while you're using the same vehicles, you know, this one, you're not going to get to your top speed as easily as in Chiliad. So next up is a sports car race called H200. So this one is a little bit like the other races that are at like the sea and stuff, so it kind of reminds me of East Coast, where it's sort of like East Coast if it was a sports car race. And what this race is it's a sports car race where you're pretty much at sea level. In a lot of situations, you're at sea level for the most part. And what I love about this race is that the waves will actually affect you. So in a lot of the other stunt races, you know, even if you're above the ocean, you're never going to reach the ocean. This one is different, however, where there are some points where there will be like a low point, and then there will be a jump, but that jump's only on one side of the racetrack. If the water's already on the racetrack, because it dips down a little bit, if it's on the racetrack and, you know, the waves are hitting it, then you're gonna slow down. So you actually want to go on the ramp, but at the same time, it's like, well, what if the water isn't there? So you have to keep that in mind, and it really, you know, makes for some good moments on this race, and I really like it. And overall, I'd say this is one of the better races. Also looks good. A lot of these races actually, like, they're in good looking areas, especially Vespucci and the H200 races. They just look very, very good. Also, the H200 race is going to be a premium race for the weekend, so on Friday till Sunday. So just keep that in mind. You may want to go check out this race. And yeah, it's just overall a pretty fun race. And yeah, it's a little bit different because the water actually can affect you on this race. So next up, we have 2 different bike races in this DLC pack. One is called the Wave. Now this one is sort of at the Radon Canyon area, which is a very underused area, I feel, in these sort of races, because, you know, the only time you ever really get to this location in the stunt races, I think, would be the Canyon Crossing, which is actually a pretty decent race. And this one is pretty much Canyon Crossing, but with bikes. And this race kind of reminds me a little bit of Thread the Needle, where there are a lot of points where you can mess up on here. And it's not exactly like Thread the Needle, but, you know, if you keep the same philosophy where there are lots of points where you can mess up, and it's very intense, I personally like those types of sports bike races. because, you know, if there's lots of points where you can mess up, it just makes it very, very intense, and I do like it. And so overall, this race is pretty nice. One of the cool things is that there are like a lot of rings of fire and stuff, which is kind of nice. It reminds me of the Afterburner race, but these rings of fire are actually very, very small compared to the Afterburner ones. And this one, it kind of mixes like the actual terrain and the actual like racetracks and stuff, which is one of my favorite things in a race, in a stunt race, when you actually go through like tunnels that have been already there, or you go under bridges that have already been there and are already in the world. But, you know, it kind of mixes, you know, both the racetracks and the actual world itself. And I do like that. And then finally, we have another race, which, admittedly, I don't like too much, but that may have just been because my experience on it. Now, this race, I could not find that many players. Most of the other races, I was able to find over 10 players, usually closer towards 16. This race, however, which is called Over the Bridge, I was not able to find that many players in here. The time I did play it was 4 players, and I see potential for the race, but at the same time, it's not that great. I don't know if I'd replay it. I don't really like bike races that are point-to-point, this is one of the point-to-point races, and it's decent, but at the same time, it's just, maybe it was just because I wasn't playing it with a lot of players, but it wasn't that fun. And yeah, it's a decent race, but I'd say it's probably my least favorite race of this pack. And I'm sure if you do have more players, it will be better, but at least because I couldn't find players, you know, to actually play this race more than just the 4 players I played it with, I just wasn't able to get a good representation of this bike race. So those are the 5 races that were added to GT Online on Tuesday, and if I were to rate them, overall they're all pretty good. You know, I'd say probably my favorite would either be Vespucci or Chiliad. Probably Vespucci because it's a little bit more different, where it is, you know, so close quarters. And if you haven't checked out these new races, I suggest go do it. Anyways, let me know your thoughts on these races in the comments. What was your favorite, and do you like them as a whole? Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. Hope you enjoy. Feedback so appreciated. I'll see you guys in the next video.